Welcome back to Stories from Popcorn Time. When you hear the name Ferris Bueller, visions spring to mind, cutting class under the perfect blue Chicago sky, coasting through downtown in a gleaming red convertible, and leading a massive parade crowd in a boisterous rendition of Twist and Shout. But how much do you really know about the hidden layers that shaped this enduring 80s phenomenon? Stick around, because today we're plunging far deeper than the familiar highlight reel. Here are 24 details you never suspected about Ferris Bueller's Day Off, along with the tensions, tricks, and twists that turned a teen comedy into an era-defining masterpiece. Though Ferris and Cameron's borrowed ride belonged to Cameron's intimidating father, it wasn't truly the prized Ferrari 250 GT California Spider it appeared to be. Instead, 3 replicas were painstakingly crafted by Medina Design and Development, each subtly different, and built more for close-ups and action shots than true vintage racing. Nevertheless, these fakes earned their place in film legend. A Modena replica of the Ferrari, blessed by its cinematic prominence, sold in 2013 for an astonishing $235,000, proof that even a well-crafted illusion can gather cult appeal. For director John Hughes, who wrote the script in less than a week, achieving just the right look and feel mattered as much as actual authenticity. He knew a genuine Ferrari would be both too precious and too temperamental for the stunts he envisioned, but the audience's imagination would fill in the gaps. From the start of the film, Hughes seasoned the visuals with winks of character detail that many viewers miss. For instance, the outfit Ferris plans to wear to pick up Sloane isn't a random choice. He'd laid it out meticulously, visible on a mannequin in his bedroom at the very beginning. When his parents leave for work, check behind the door. A hat, sunglasses, and a trench coat arrangement stand prepared, symbolizing Ferris's uncanny knack for planning spontaneity. Look closely, and you'll notice Ferris wears a different outfit in each sequence before he and Cameron finally collect Sloane. This fluidity in wardrobe reflected Hughes's belief that every scene should reflect Ferris's restless creativity. He's never static, always evolving, even in terms of fashion. Interestingly, Anthony Michael Hall, best known for his roles in earlier Hughes films, admitted he was offered the title role of Ferris but turned it down. Hall had been a Hughes favorite, shining in 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Weird Science, so his refusal sparked some tension behind the scenes. Although Hall passed on Ferris, this decision ultimately opened the door for Matthew Broderick, who brought a mischievous charm balanced with a subtle vulnerability. Broderick's take cemented the character as a legend, charming, rebellious, and yet somehow morally anchored. Had Hall accepted, Ferris might have carried a sharper edge, perhaps shifting the film's tone entirely. Hughes's casting choices were always crucial. He understood that a single actor's energy could reshape the narrative's emotional temperature. The Chicago setting wasn't just a backdrop, it was a character in its own right. Hughes, a proud Chicagoan, wanted to celebrate the city's culture, architecture, and rhythm. He shot scenes at the Art Institute of Chicago, choosing evocative paintings to reflect the characters' inner lives. At Wrigley Field, Ferris and Cameron sampled America's pastime, bridging the gap between teenage rebellion and cherished hometown traditions. Even the parade scene, with Ferris hijacking a German-American festival, was filmed over 2 days. Hughes orchestrated a real crowd, not just extras, capturing the city's authentic excitement. The result was a living, breathing Chicago, framing Ferris's free-spirited escapade against a tapestry of real civic pride. Hughes's dialogue brimmed with cultural references and philosophical undertones. Ferris wasn't just ditching class to have fun. He was grabbing life by the throat, resisting the conformity and existential dread that shadow adolescence. Each joke and prank subtly affirmed a worldview that youth, if seized with courage and wit, can defy the chains of expectation. In early drafts, the storyline was even more introspective, with deeper glimpses into Ferris's psyche. Although some complexities were trimmed for pacing, the final script still hinted that this was more than a simple day off. It was a carpe diem rallying cry that resonated long after credits rolled. While the crew shaped these elements on set, tension hummed beneath the production's surface. Hughes clashed occasionally with producers about budget constraints and the feasibility of ambitious scenes. The actors, too, Broderick, Mia Sara as Sloane, and Alan Ruck as Cameron, felt the pressure. The scene where Cameron's anger boils over and he vents years of resentment toward his father's car and his emotional absence required intense focus. Ruck admitted to feeling intimidated by the material, knowing his performance would decide whether the audience empathized with Cameron's pain or dismissed him as a footnote. The parade performance of Twist and Shout presented its own logistical nightmare, corralling crowds and music synchronization. Rumor has it that some Chicagoans who joined the dancing mass had no clue what they were part of, merely swept up in Ferris's charismatic whirlwind. This spontaneity might not have been 100% authentic, but it convincingly evoked the film's central message that sometimes joy and human connection arise unexpectedly, defying all scripts. Meanwhile, the character Ed Rooney, played by Jeffrey Jones, exposed another dimension of the film's tension, the relentless authority figure desperate to restore order against Ferris's chaos. His pursuit, at once comedic and sinister, mirrored the larger battle between creative freedom and restrictive rules. This duality was Hughes's genius. The viewer laughed at Rooney's frustration, but also recognized the darker side of institutions that fear youthful independence. Hughes ensured that even minor characters carried thematic weight, reinforcing the film's staying power. Over time, Ferris Bueller's Day Off became enshrined as a seminal 80s classic. Fans revisit it for laughs, but also to rediscover their own youthful longings. The success of the Modena Ferrari replica at auction decades later testifies to the cultural imprint the film left behind. Every artifact, from Ferris's outfits to the painting Cameron contemplates at the museum, crackles with nostalgic energy. The film remains a snapshot of a particular moment in pop culture when rebellion had heart, rebellion had purpose, and skipping school could become a transcendent art form. Their collaboration came to an abrupt end following Weird Science, and once Anthony Michael Hall ventured off to work with other directors, the relationship with John Hughes cooled considerably. Yet Hall maintained the belief that Hughes had originally crafted pivotal 80s teen characters like Ducky and Pretty in Pink and Ferris Bueller himself, specifically with him in mind. For Hughes's part, he insisted he had envisioned Matthew Broderick when penning the screenplay, finding in Broderick a blend of cunning charm and disarming sincerity tailor-made for Ferris. As for casting, the role of Cameron initially evaded Alan Ruck. Emilio Estevez declined the part before the baton passed to Ruck, who was nearly a decade older than the high schoolers they were portraying. In fact, Ruck turned 30 shortly after the film's release, a testament to his skill in capturing a teenager's vulnerability and angst at an age far beyond the high school years. Molly Ringwald, a reigning Hughes muse at the time, expressed interest in playing Sloane, Ferris's poised and alluring girlfriend. Hughes allegedly told her the part was too slight for her established star power. He wanted someone older for Sloane, and only later discovered Mia Sara's true age, just 18, an ironic twist that confirmed his casting instincts more than his assumptions. Off-screen, there were personal sparks. Matthew Broderick and Jennifer Grey, who portrayed Ferris's perpetually exasperated sister Jeannie, reportedly became engaged shortly before the movie hit theaters. Meanwhile, Cindy Pickett and Lyman Ward, who played Ferris's parents, felt a mutual pull while filming. Their on-screen marital dynamic would carry into real life. They married and started a family, forging a new narrative beyond the film's fiction. Then there's Ben Stein's cameo as the droning economics teacher. Originally, Hughes planned to record his lecture off camera, but the student extras' spontaneous laughter at Stein's monotone delivery was so authentic that Hughes decided to show him on screen, immortalizing his dry, hypnotic repetition of Bueller, Bueller. Stein, who had once served as a speechwriter for Presidents Nixon and Ford, personally chose to speak about supply-side economics, his area of expertise, adding an unexpected layer of genuine intellectual absurdity to the scene. Charlie Sheen's iconic cameo in the police station cemented his role as a bad boy character, and decades later, he would reprise this moment in a meta-nostalgic nod to Ferris Bueller's legacy. On the sitcom The Goldbergs, which unabashedly pays homage to the 1980s, Sheen stepped back into a similar role. The show, created by Adam F. Goldberg, stands as a love letter to the era, echoing the tensions between siblings and idolizing the pop culture legends of Hughes' cinematic universe. The show's character Erica, analogous in spirit to Jeannie, unleashed her own brand of sibling rivalry in an echo of Gray's frustration with Ferris. In a behind-the-scenes anecdote fitting for a screwball comedy, Jeffrey Jones, who portrayed the beleaguered principal Ed Rooney, had to tuck a piece of raw steak into his pocket so that the Rottweiler on set would remain fixated on him. This offbeat method ensured the dog's intense focus, enriching the scenes of Rooney's increasingly humiliating pursuit of Ferris. License plates, too, were chosen with care, each alluding to another Hughes film or theme. While these Easter eggs whizzed by most audiences, fans who paused and rewound discovered subtle tributes embedded in these small details. They served as Hughes's quiet signature across his filmography, a playful code linking Ferris Bueller's universe to other teenage dreamscapes he had conjured. Ultimately, Ferris Bueller's Day Off was a lattice of meticulous decisions, from casting to costume details, comedic timing to subtle references. Together, these elements coalesced into a film that still resonates decades later. The friction between Hughes and Hall, the almost miscasting of Ruck and Mia Sara, the off-camera romances and marriages, Stein's economical lecture, Sheen's cameo that would echo through future homage, and the raw steak canine bribe. All these threads combined to craft an enduring classic. Each revelation deepens the allure of a movie already cherished for its wit and rebellious spirit. They slipped hidden meanings into even the smallest details. License plates, for instance, weren't random numbers or letters slapped on for convenience. They were coded tributes, each one nodding to another John Hughes project, weaving this film into a tapestry of his cinematic universe. Ferris's mother's car bore VCTN, calling back to National Lampoon's Vacation. Jeannie's car displayed TBC, recalling The Breakfast Club. Ferris's father's car read Double M. A playful nod toward Mr. Mom Rooney's vehicle flaunted 4FBDO, referencing Ferris Bueller's Day Off itself. Only Cameron's father's precious Ferrari dared to break the pattern. Its plate spelled out Nerve OUS, a subtle manifestation of Cameron's crippling anxiety and constant dread. In this world, even the cars spoke to the characters' inner landscapes. Behind the camera, the film's kinetic energy sometimes came at a cost. Matthew Broderick's character Ferris was supposed to showcase more intricate choreography during that now legendary parade scene. Yet earlier in the shoot, Broderick hurt his knee sprinting through suburban backyards, a sacrifice to the film's frantic pace. With his mobility hampered, the carefully planned dance routine had to be scaled back. As a result, some of Ferris's on-screen dancing feels more improvised and less polished, contributing to the film's spontaneous aura. What appears as carefree exuberance on screen was, in fact, a creative pivot forced by real injury. Sometimes magic happened by chance. The camera crews captured a construction worker dancing along to the music, a genuine Chicago laborer, not an actor. This unscripted moment injected authenticity into a scene defined by breaking all rules. One man, drawn into Ferris's infectious spirit, dancing above the city's streets. Meanwhile, Jennifer Grey, who played Jeannie, refused to be sidelined simply because her character wasn't in that scene. Determined not to miss out on the day's fun, she snuck onto set disguised as an autograph hound, complete with a blonde wig to mask her identity. In a film that embraced the unexpected, her undercover cameo fit right in, silently acknowledging that everyone, cast and crew alike, was infected by Ferris's fearless rebellion. Hughes also honored personal heroes and formative memories through wardrobe choices. Cameron's jersey, emblazoned with the Detroit Red Wings logo, was no random pick. One of Hughes's own idols was Gordie Howe, a legendary hockey player whose 25 seasons with the Red Wings etched his name into sporting history. Hughes, who spent his first 12 years in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, carried a lifelong affection for the local hockey team. Dressing Cameron in a Red Wings jersey wasn't just a flourish. It was a personal tribute, a secret handshake between Hughes and the audience members who understood the reference. It added another dimension to Cameron's character. Beneath his neurosis and insecurity lay the spirit of a legendary athlete's team, hinting that resilience and courage might yet emerge from his timid shell. Taken together, these are not trivial footnotes, but integral threads woven into the film's fabric. Every choice, be it the cryptic license plates, the forced improvisation of a dance sequence, a construction worker's spontaneous joy, an actress's determination to join the party disguised as a fan, or the subtle nod to a childhood idol in a hockey jersey, reinforces the idea that Ferris Bueller's Day Off was far more than a simple teen comedy. It was a multi-layered, intricately orchestrated love letter to youth, courage, playfulness, and personal nostalgia. Each revelation deepens our understanding of how Hughes constructed his world with care, infusing every frame with personal history, improvisational flair, and affectionate humor. Cameron's Detroit Red Wings jersey carried deeper meaning than most viewers realized. It honored one of Hughes's childhood heroes, legendary hockey player Gordie Howe of the Detroit Red Wings, whose feats on the ice had once captivated the young writer-director during his years in Michigan. Meanwhile, Charlie Sheen's cameo at the police station took method acting to extremes. He remained awake for more than 2 days to capture that half-lidded, dazed stare of a delinquent drifting on the margins of the film's plot. The intensity of that approach begs the question, how exactly did he sustain himself through that sleepless marathon? And what thoughts ran through his mind as he leaned into the bleary discomfort? In a film famed for its timeless sense of fun, precise dates lurk in the background. Some dedicated fans and bloggers combed through historical baseball records and concluded that the day Ferris, Sloan, and Cameron attended the Cubs game at Wrigley Field must have been June 5, 1985, when the Cubs played the Atlanta Braves. This detail adds a strange temporal anchor to Ferris's supposedly carefree escapade, yet production schedules rarely bow to narrative logic. Since shooting took place in the fall, the crew couldn't film at the actual June game. Instead, they shot footage in September when the Cubs faced the Expos, forging cinematic illusion to align with the script's calendar. Reality and fantasy entwined like ivy on Wrigley's walls remind us that the magic of film often demands sly sleight of hand. Not all initial reactions were as spirited as Ferris's antics. Before its official premiere, Matthew Broderick, Alan Ruck, and Mia Sara screened the movie and found themselves oddly silent. They didn't laugh once, leaving the theater convinced they'd starred in a flop. Studio executives, too, were underwhelmed. Tension thickened in the editing room's charged atmosphere. In response, Hughes and editor Paul Hirsch locked themselves away for 2 frantic weeks of meticulous recuts. Piece by piece, they assembled the rhythm and charm audiences now treasure. The eventual beloved final cut rose from these ashes of uncertainty, proving that even a film destined for iconic status can initially wobble on shaky ground. Hughes's creative process only amplifies the film's mystique. With a mid-1980s writer's strike looming, he marched into Paramount, pitched the story to executive Ned Tannen with a single sentence: "I want to do this movie about a kid who takes a day off from school, and that's all I know so far," and then hammered out the script in just 6 days. This feat testifies to Hughes's electric imagination, capable of conjuring Ferris Bueller's world from a spark of inspiration under the pressure of imminent shutdowns in Hollywood. The resulting narrative flowed so naturally that it felt inevitable, as if Ferris, Cameron, and Sloan had always existed, waiting only for Hughes to give them form. The fictional Shermer High School, an iconic setting woven through several Hughes creations, gains a new dimension here, while The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles evoke this invented suburban archetype. Ferris Bueller's Day Off grants a glimpse of Hughes's own past. The exterior shots were filmed at Glenbrook North High School, Hughes's alma mater. In merging fact and fiction, Hughes anchored his adolescent dreams and regrets into the film's DNA. For the Bueller house, the production team literally knocked on doors until they found the perfect suburban home belonging to the Buickman family. Minor modifications, drilling a hole in the fence for Rooney to spy through, rigging a doggy door to facilitate slapstick chases, and unplugging a noisy refrigerator, blurred the line between cinematic demands and everyday life. The producers compensated the family with an extra $1,000 after spoiling their food, a minor financial salve for an unusual intrusion on domestic routine. In an unexpected twist of fate, Alan Ruck, the actor who ultimately captured audiences' hearts as the anxious yet endearing Cameron, originally received an offer to portray none other than Ferris Bueller himself. He had worked with John Hughes multiple times, and he'd even tried out for the role of Bender in The Breakfast Club before that part landed with Judd Nelson. Meanwhile, a host of other prominent young actors of the era, including Jim Carrey, John Cusack, Johnny Depp, Tom Cruise, and Michael J. Fox, were rumored to have crossed the filmmakers' minds as potential Ferrises, each candidate representing a different flavor of irreverent charisma that might have altered the entire film's tone had they been chosen. In an era when soundtrack albums were a common marketing hook, Ferris Bueller's Day Off defied expectations. No official soundtrack was initially released. Director John Hughes believed the film's eclectic selection of songs wouldn't blend well on a single album. Still, he valued his fans enough to find a solution. He mailed out 100,000 vinyl singles featuring 2 of the movie's songs to those who had signed up for his personal mailing list. This unusual gesture forged a direct, almost personal connection between Hughes and his audience, allowing them to hold a piece of the film's musical soul in their hands. Over time, This scarcity of an official soundtrack enhanced the film's mystique, making its musical choices even more prized by aficionados. Hughes's script produced lines so memorable they seeped into popular culture. The most iconic, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it," escaped the film's borders and found its way into the public sphere. Even First Lady Barbara Bush cited it in a 1990 commencement address at Wellesley College, acknowledging that the wisdom of a fictional teen adventurer resonated with the future leaders of America. Later, Emma Stone paid homage by recreating the shower scene in another movie, and Domino's Pizza referenced the film in a 2017 ad campaign starring Stranger Things actor Joe Keery, proving Ferris's voice still echoes across decades. Meanwhile, two bands drew inspiration from the movie. The ska group Save Ferris took their name from the Water Tower's plea to save the ailing hero, while the rock band Rooney derived their identity from the hapless principal Ed Rooney, simplifying their name along the way. Hughes was known for pulling subtle personal threads into his work. Sloane's very name reflected his connections, as Sloane Peterson took her first name from Slow Tannen, daughter of Ned Tannen, Paramount's CEO at the time. Early drafts had called the character Tandy, but Hughes eventually anchored her identity in real-world inspiration. Meanwhile, he indulged his lifelong love of the Beatles, constantly playing their music on set and weaving references throughout the screenplay. The choice of twist and shout for the parade scene offered a kinetic homage to Lennon and McCartney's legacy. Hughes reportedly listened to the White Album for 56 consecutive days while working on the project, immersing himself in its textures to fuel his own creative impulses. Sir Paul McCartney later admitted he enjoyed the film's irreverent spirit, but objected to the brass instruments layered into twist and shout, preferring the track's original purity. Such unexpected critiques from a Beatle himself only add another layer of historical resonance. Notably, Rux Cameron wears a Detroit Red Wings jersey not by accident, but because Hughes, who had spent part of his youth in Michigan, idolized Gordie Howe, a legendary hockey player whose skill and sportsmanship shaped local hero worship. Charlie Sheen's cameo as a bleary-eyed rebel in the police station was achieved through real effort. He stayed awake for more than 2 days to capture that look of authentic dissipation. It's a testament to the lengths performers would go in order to embody their roles perfectly, even for a brief scene in a film defined by breezy insouciance. It's worth noting that the movie's supposed date, Ferris's Day Off aligning with a particular Cubs game, stands as another layer of meticulous fandom. Blogs pieced together that June 5th, 1985, was the logical date of Ferris and friends attending the baseball game. Of course, actual filming took place months later, with a different opposing team entirely, emphasizing how movie magic can transcend chronology. Early test screenings were nothing short of disappointing. Broderick Ruck and Mia Sara watched an early cut and failed to laugh even once, leaving convinced they had made a flop. Studio executives shared their anxiety. Hughes and editor Paul Hirsch rushed back to the editing room, re-sculpting the film into the version that would enthrall generations, demonstrating that genius sometimes requires last-minute reinvention. The fictional Shermer High School, a recurring Hughes motif, was replaced on screen by footage of Hughes's actual alma mater, Glenbrook North High School. The Bueller family's home was a real suburban dwelling, and production changes included drilling holes in fences and messing with the family's refrigerator. The producers compensated the inconvenienced homeowners with an extra $1,000 after spoiling their food supply, another testament to the ordinary sacrifices made to forge cinematic illusions. All these backstage negotiations, tweaks, and hidden homages coalesced into a film beloved for its seeming effortlessness. In truth, Ferris Bueller's Day Off stands as a finely tuned orchestration of personal nostalgia, cultural references, last-minute edits, and fearless improvisations. If these insights broaden your appreciation and highlight the intricate craftsmanship behind every scene, consider pressing that subscribe button and leaving a comment. Celebrating such a film is about more than nostalgia. It's about understanding how the interplay of personalities, history, artistic obsessions, and even happenstance can yield a creation that endures for decades, whispering new secrets to anyone curious enough to listen.